so we'll call the meeting to order. Point out that the open meetings act poster is clearly posted over there by the flag. And with that, we'll have the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call for attendance. Murphy?
Yes, sir.
Pikes?
Yes.
Wabernick?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Evans is here. With that, our first item will be to approve the minutes from the June 12th, 2023 meeting.
I have one thing we need to go over there, I believe. So, I saw Claire on the street one day and decided I'd go down and see what the idea was gonna be there to try to help her get that problem fixed. And when I talked to her about going through the yard, she was not in cooperation at all. About her having to tear up the yard, redo the sprinkler system. So I don't know if we're gonna be able to go with this kind of plan. Be about the last sentence on the first page. I don't know if we need to revisit with her or.
Well, when I talked to her early in the thing, and she told me she might have had some time to think about it, but, you know, if we can't go through her yard, I guess it ain't gonna happen, because that's the only way to get to that storm sewer, is across through her yard to the, kind of the northwest of that, highway. And I told her what we were gonna do, and I got in the box culvert, and talked to Tim Arns, and he stated that we have to dig down in front of her driveway, dig down as far as we can, and then cut across the yard. And I mentioned it to her, she told me she would understand that, got the market papers where they were, unless she changed her mind, that's all I know.
Can y'all just speak up in these microphones?
The minutes do reflect what the conversation was at the meeting, and if we need to have further discussion on that, that would warrant it, yes.
Not really.
Are you discussing Omaha Avenue? Is that what?
Which project are you talking? Claire Miller in front of her house. The runoff that she's having to go down in her garage, that's what we're talking about. On
We
Sixth
can't
Street.
hear them well without the microphone.
Actually, I'm sorry, may I? Actually, the motion was just for what the city would pay, and we just, the discussion was that if there was anything happened on her lawn, she would pay for it. So, the amounts that you had for estimates were just what the city would do up to her yard.
So, who's paying for the pipe then?
I'm sorry.
Who's paying for that?
We, had, what you did was made a motion to approve the project as, presented, and that project is for the, 6,700 will cover for the digging and placing the drain boxes and putting in the 12-inch pipe and drain off, and then $500 will pay for the steel grate over the drains, and 16 feet of the pipe and culvert is $1,200. It said any materials or labor that occurs on the Miller property paid for by the homeowners. So all the motion really was to accept the estimate of, what you had for what you were going to do. So it didn't really pertain to what she would have to pay, because we don't know what she would have to pay. That would be a different motion, or we can talk about later. If she doesn't want to pay that, what it might occur for you later.
Okay.
So the minutes do accurately depict the conversation and the vote to approve funding. So is there a question about the minutes themselves? The procedure is going to happen, obviously, if the homeowner doesn't want that or advocate for that, then something else will happen. Right? So we'll have to discuss that another time if that's reasonable.
You want to do the litter, Jason, see if she's got one?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 12th.
I can second.
Motion was made by Miller, seconded by Warren. Heights,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, sir.
The next item on that would be to approve the claims for bills to be paid for July 2023, so it actually be paying of June.
Well, these are July's bills,
Okay.
that we now arrange them so that they're all
All right.
come here before they're due. These are this month's bills.
You have the claims in front of you?
They should be the new ones with the addition on the bottom of Black Hills Energy.
On page 2, I have a concern about this custom signals for $21,484.10. And there's Alexa Pool for $2,500 and Motorola Solutions for $30,945.12. I do not know what that's about.
The Motorola Solutions were radios that Chief Carter ordered in February. And I think that he had planned, I don't know for sure, I haven't been able to talk to him, that he had planned that the grant was going to pay for. The problem is that if we do get the grant, it will not pay for any prior purchases. It has to be used for purchases after. So part of those radios have already been installed in the vehicle. That is the Jones Automotive cost. The custom signals are also part of that. And Lexapool for $2,500 was a company that he acquired to help him write that grant. He paid $2,500 to have a tutorial to write the grant for us.
So these were charged to the city, is that correct?
Yeah, I never saw them. They were not delivered to the city. They must have been delivered to him directly, but they were ordered in city name and Chief Carter.
And the initial purchases were made, or the plans of purchase were made in February. The bills for these didn't show up until the office until
This week.
this week. So we had no prior notification of these purchases or expenditure until that point in time. Actually,
I did not open their mail up until this week. And since there's nobody there to open it, I've been opening it. And these bills are actually overdue.
I did reach out to Custom Signals and Motorola Solutions, and per your discussion or conversation we need to have is that one, this is for 2 units of everything, or 2 cameras and for 2 radios, and the installation was just for Jones was for 1 automotive, 1 cruiser, which these things were installed in. The other half of the equipment is secured, safe. Both of those companies have tentatively agreed to take the radios and the cameras back. They're working with their corporate headquarters so that we can return and without restocking fee, but I'm not 100% sure. They didn't make any promises, but until to date, they both will let us return them. There may be a 20% restocking fee. They're working with their corporate really diligently to see potentially if they can be returned without a stocking fee. So it's what the council wants to do or the decision to go forward with those. I'm sure they will both accept them. Motorola Solutions, actually the bill was sent to us, billed 91 days today. And they don't accept equipment back after 90 days, but she made exception in this case, so as long as I let her know tomorrow or shortly thereafter what our plans are. They want a picture of the equipment on open boxes, and I can get that for them, and they're working diligently with their corporate to see if they can return them without a stocking fee.
Well, how much equipment would we return? What's the total amount on equipment at $30,000?
It'd be about $26,000.
Okay.
So that Lexapool, that's $2,500, where does?
The $2,500 is from a grant writing. Lexapool is a company that helps police with all kinds of things, with all kinds of issues and dealing with all kinds of things. They have a special service to help write grants. That service was acquired to help us write the JIG grant.
With 20% of them, it's $5,200.
Yes. And I don't know, I don't know, when you all know when you, unfortunately, when you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot, it depreciates instantaneously. I don't know what the depreciation value would be. I just work with those companies to see if there's any way humanly possible that they would be considered letting us send back $26,000 worth of equipment to them. So I guess the decision is yours, what you want to do. Jones Automotive is we're still in good standing with them. And I don't know if there's other people that can install this or whatever. We asked for a bidder quote for all this, but I'm sure Jones would be able to install the other new equipment if that's what we want to do. I don't know anything about police equipment much. I did go get with Mr. Pice, we did go get the cruiser and drove it back, and the car seemed to work fine, and there was a camera there. And so I did see that the equipment was installed and appeared to be professional installation. I didn't see any flaws or any damages, but I didn't test it out in any way, shape, or form. So. But they're a reputable company and they do good business. So I guess we just need to make a decision. Do you want me to continue to deal with custom signals and Motorola to try to return these things? If so, tomorrow I'll be busy, but I'll get the pictures and get the information and see if we can get them. The hope is that we can return them at zero, but they can't promise that restocking fee. But they said they're working diligently to try to help us out in the situation we were in.
Do we still get the grant?
No, it's too, you can't use the grant because we bought them before we got approved. Actually, we bought them before we even applied for the grant.
No, we didn't buy them before he applied for that grant. That grant was applied for before he bought it.
The application on the grant date is
March.
3/15/2023 is when the grant was submitted. So that'd be January, February, March 15th of 2023.
That would be false information because the grant paperwork had Cheryl Lawhead as the mayor. Cheryl Lawhead is not the mayor as of March of 2023.
Okay, but we just have a submission date of the grant.
This
That's
is
when
the
it,
grant that we potentially received, and it was submitted on March 15th. So what you're saying is, there's $52,000 of video cameras for the police equipment that was unauthorized purchases, that now you're asking for the board's approval. And we need to decide whether we're gonna approve this or send the video cameras back, but then you get docked 20%.
and we can't send back any open boxes or things that have been installed. So half of this we've already incurred the money, and the other half is what we're working with. And it comes down to a lot of things like, are we gonna have 2 police cruisers? So if we're not gonna have 2 cruisers, and to install $26,000 worth of equipment into police cruisers that we're gonna try and turn around and resell, I don't know if we increase the resale value, but well, being a logical person, I don't think we increase the resale value by $26,000. But that's
So is one vehicle completely set up with $26,000 worth of video equipment?
yes, that's correct.
And we could send the other equipment back that's in boxes.
Yes, and I looked and I did find unopened boxes, so that this isn't like Jones Automotive went through and ripped every box open. They just opened half the boxes. The rest of it appears to be unopened. I have not done it.
Okay there, you just fired the cops right here. You talk about the police cars and everything else, and then the junk cars sitting right here. Well, we think we're stupid? Do you think we're stupid? Don't give us a hand. Just don't give us a hand. You get rid of the cops and everything else, and junk cars sitting right here. You think we're stupid? You're firing them already. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
So is the grant, can we use the grant money for any of this video equipment?
Yeah, that's what I said in the future. When I talked to Motorola Solutions and to Custom Inks, I said, if we return this equipment, I mean, and in good faith, down the road, hopefully, we would be able to, if we get another police officer, we'll keep the cruiser, will we resell this equipment again? Of course, they will, but, you know, they're disappointed, of course, that they're gonna get their equipment back, but it's of no fault of their own. They just will be happy to help us out with the restocking.
So it takes
I think
$26,000
that we
to
need to
install
return the
the
equipment
lights
that's in a box, that's not open. I think we should return it back to them. You know, if they're open, we gotta keep them, unless they can work with this. I think we need to, my opinion is, I think we need to send it back, because we got one cruiser that's got all this stuff on, correct?
Yeah, we have one fully equipped cruiser.
That's suffice for me, but I think the other parts that haven't been open, we have to send them back. That's my opinion.
So what are we gonna do if we get 2 officers and need 2 vehicles and equipment $20,000?
Well, we get the grant, if we did get the grant, we could reorder it.
So do you think we should leave
Can't
that?
pay for anything that's on our, in our premises right now.
The grant is,
We can take, right, the grant is not there yet, we got to fill it out yet. Once we get it approved, then we can buy this equipment back if we need it. I don't think we need to hang on to this stuff, because we don't know if we're gonna have another police officer. We're talking about a product here, that's what we're talking about, sending the product back and getting reimbursed for what we can out of the boxes that have not been opened. Correct?
right,
That's my view, I think we should.
What was that, Jason, you wanna keep them?
I think we should keep it, set that other car up for 2 people. I don't think it's gonna appreciate the value of the car anyway, having it fully set up. If you do decide to set it on the road.
Jamie?
I'm not opposed to keeping it, but I can see sending it back and then maybe trying to buy it back later.
We can buy it back if we get the grant
Grant,
money, then
right.
we can have the money to pay for it. Right now, this money is gonna come out of the city.
I guess since the purchase has been made and our name of the city is good, that we should maybe stand behind the purchases, even though they were unauthorized. That's not
And then the only thing is, where we gonna store this stuff so people know where it is?
Oh, we can just put it in the cruiser.
we could go ahead and have it installed.
For $820 more, we can have it installed.
Mayor Evans, can't you get a definite answer from corporate whether there will be a restocking fee or not? Because when you're talking $26,000 and you have to pay 20% restocking fee, that's $5,200.
yeah, and I was hoping to have that today, but I didn't. I called and she's still working, she's delayed with Motorola, still working. I don't know that.
You just need a motion?
Well, the other thing, of course, is that, I guess we could not pay this bill this month, and, then we take a chance of Motorola not taking their materials back at all because we're past the 90 days. I don't know.
Let's see what we decide later.
And you can make a decision when nobody's here. You can just get rid of it while we're not paying attention.
May I say something? That grant was to pay for the radios, and that grant was applied through Motorola. That grant through JAG was through Lexipol, which is a law enforcement grant agency that brought that grant to our attention. I applied with that grant through Lexipol, which was through the COPS program. So for someone to say that grant was unauthorized, the council approved 2 vehicles. So if the logic was that 2 vehicles would be outfitted. The other thing is that most of you were on the council when Lawhead was here and discussed getting those vehicles, outfitting those vehicles, and buying all that equipment. When I applied for that grant at Lexipol, through Lexipol, Motorola was the one that actually offered the grant to us and told us about it. to the state, it come down to the agencies, it took a long time, as you all are well aware of that. And then the grant letter that we got, it was a pre-funding letter, and then it was a final funding letter. We got the final one, where it says that the grant has been granted. Now, we have $56,000 worth of equipment that's purchased and a $93,000 grant. And you have a funding letter that confirms that the grant has been given. I don't know what the problem is. So now you have a grant that is not taxpayers or taxpayers' burden that will pay for the equipment that you're talking about sending back. Doesn't make sense to me. And for Mayor Evans to say that he was not aware of this, no one asked him about it. He's been at every single council meeting, heard every single thing, voted the way that he voted. But now that he's become mayor, he doesn't recall a lot of these things, which is fine. But I'm just saying, don't make it seem like that what I did was unauthorized, it was disingenuous, it was underground sneaky, slide man, or whatever. That's not the way it was. And I'm gonna also address the issue that the grant was, that this equipment was bought prior to the grant. When the equipment was ordered, it was ordered before the grant was given, yes, but only because the grant was delayed. Contact the Crime Commission and they'll tell you how long it took that grant to come. That grant was, it was months and months behind being granted to us. We had to order the equipment because when those radios were first ordered, it took Motorola over 6 months to get the chips and the other components for those radios in order that we might have them on time. I did what I could because we were facing a safety issue in this town for law enforcement because we did not have functioning radios. We had to call dispatch on the phone. The Crime Commission was aware of that. Everyone else was aware of it. The Sheriff's Office did what they could to help us out. They were aware of it. That grant was legitimate. It is legitimate. Those funds are not just sitting out there waiting to be approved. We didn't pre-order everything so it could be paid for. If you read the grant, all we had to do was just meet the contingencies, the mayor confirmed them, and the money would have been available after July 1st. The mayor asked for an extension, it was granted. Actually, even though today is the 10th and it's the deadline, I talked to the Crime Commission, they said that even if this council needed a little more time, they would also be gracious enough to do that as well. There's no reason to just give this money back.
So are you saying that the grant will cover the video camera equipment?
That is what it was for, and that grant can only be used for those purposes. That grant can only be used for Officer Miller's salary, department salary to be covered, and for radio and camera equipment and for communication equipment for those vehicles. There was other grant opportunities available that we did not pursue because of all of the hullabaloo that came up about this grant here. It was taking too long, and there was so much controversy about it. I did not continue to pursue the other grant funding that would have greatly exceeded our expectations of what this town could need without going and asking taxpayers to pay for it. That was the goal. When we first started this, we were all on one accord and everything was fine. Everyone was in agreement with it, and then something happened.
But will the grant that we have, will that pay for the video equipment?
Yes, that grant will pay for this video equipment. And then Senator Barry Kay also called and talked about that because he sent me an email and told me that he talked to the mayor, and he confirmed that, John, I couldn't do anything about them wanting to get rid of Miller or whatever, because I can't get involved in personnel issues. He said, but as far as getting some money from Miller's salary, I was able to do that, but it's not gonna be today, because the council wanted something right away. He said he couldn't get a letter right away, but he would be able to get some funding to bring some relief so we can have the public safety issues addressed that this city had, that this town had, that the council had about its law enforcement officers and the people that live in this town. And that was done. There were a lot of people that worked to get this done. So for people to sit there and say that it's not legitimate and we have to give it back because it can't be used, it's not true. You have a state senator that put his time and effort into this thing to make sure we got what we need. You're gonna call that man a liar too?
When did the material show up? When did the radio show up? When did the radio show up, John?
You know what, I'll have to go back and look, they showed up probably a month and a half or two ago, maybe a little more. But those radios showed up, if the grant had been timely, it would have all happened at about the same time. That's what Motorola and Lexington was doing. That radio equipment was obtained and applied for through a grant process that Motorola has to law enforcement. See, here's something else that's been said. Oh, well, we need to go get bids from other places. We don't know who else can install this. When we buy things, we have to buy things through state bid. Because the state goes through and they vet certain companies to make sure that the quality of the equipment that we buy and the installation of that equipment is to the standards that the state requires to set out. Well, there are vendors like, for example, Jones is down in Omaha. They're one of those vendors. I'm sure that there are a few others around, but it took us a month and a half to get that appointment for Jones to install that radio equipment. Everything takes time. So we were trying to get things done so we can have it all done by the time the dam race started, the 4th of July came. We were trying to get everything done. So at the busiest times in this city, where the most people are here, and the sheriff deputies are stretched to the max, and state patrol can't even come to this area because of activity, we wouldn't be equipped and able to handle whatever came, because we had radios, we had camera equipment, we had body cameras, we had everything we needed. That was the goal. We barely made it because the grant was late. Had the grant been issued on time, there would be no argument about, well, that equipment was ordered before the grant got here. Of course, the equipment got here before the grant got here. The grant was almost 5.5 months late.
So the grant won't pay retroactive bills. That's what we're saying. This bill is dated December 14th, 2022.
So that's when we got them, was in December?
PO
You ordered those in July? You ordered the radios in July, you said it took 6 months for them to get the chip. You ordered those radios in July?
Okay, I had talked to.
But that was before you applied for the grant.
I'm not sure when, I have to look at the paperwork, I'm not sure when I ordered, I don't recall.
Well, 6 months out, we get a bill in December, 6 months out from that is July, or June.
Okay, but, all right, listen, what I'm telling you is, when I first talked to Lexipol and Motorola and Custom Signals, because we talked to 3 different vendors to even decide who would give us the best deal on the radio equipment that was vetted by the state. So when we first ordered those radios, and the first order went in, we wrote everything up, I took it to Cheryl Lawhead, but the first order did not go through because the people who were working there, they had a personnel change, they had a turnover. So some of the information that you may have gone to their office and looked through the file folders and obtained without talking to me, maybe the first time we applied, that's not the equipment that we ordered. We made 2 changes to the equipment and did 2 different orders. One was the earlier one, which did not go through because they couldn't even get the chips for the radios. The second time, we changed it because when I called the sheriff said, John, make sure that you order those radios on the 8,000 megahertz because we go to state band. Because the first time we put in that radio order just to see what we can get, the sheriff had changed their radio frequency, the type of radios they had gone to a digital system. And I had to reorder the radios again to make sure they were state band radios to be compatible with their system and the system for the Nebraska State Patrol. So if you went in the office and looked, because I keep everything in it, so I don't even know what you're looking at. Are you looking at the one when I initially contacted Motorola and talked to them about radios? Or are you looking at the documents where we actually ordered the radios from Motorola? Because I talked to 2 different people and had 2 different orders actually drawn up during that time. And I don't remember exactly when they happened, but I know they're going there.
I think we just need to decide if we're gonna pay for the $52,000 worth of cameras, and maybe we will be able to use the grant, and maybe we won't.
Is it just the cameras, or is it radios and cameras? Because you're potentially putting any for the officers in harm's way by not providing.
Cartridge, internal media, SuperCat backup power, touchpad controller, cable link, zoom camera, combo mount, camera, SD camera, Bexy mount, crash detection, iPortal without dock kit. That's not even half
the radio is a radio, it's two components. The camera is
So do
one
we
unit.
want to
What you're also
keep
looking at, talking about is all the components that
They're
put that
all-
thing together and installed in the car.
Still pieces that are not yet delivered.
We already got the bills for them, right?
We have to, no, it hasn't been added into that bill yet.
Oh, it hasn't.
No, there was part of the order that was backordered and it was supposed to be delivered today, and I did not see it today, so there's another $1,200 worth of equipment that was backordered. That was according to Motorola. So whatever that number is, I don't know what exactly those
May I
prices.
make a recommendation that we, keep the equipment, get the other, vehicle, have it installed, and then if you don't need two vehicles at some point in time, that second vehicle will be worth more.
Thank you.
Make a motion to keep it.
I say that.
Motion been made and seconded. Warburton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Murphy? Yep. Pike?
No.
So then, we need, to approve the rest of the claims at this point in time. If that. That was for the radio and video camera. Any other additions or corrections or anything for the claim?
I make a motion to approve the claims.
I'll second.
Made by Miller, seconded by Murphy. Miller?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
And Warren?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the first item of new business would be Steve Parr with the city streets and bonding potential.
Okay, good evening. Steve Parr with JO Consulting Group. If I don't have to use that, I'll try to talk loud, so. Steve Parr with JO Consulting Group, and also with me tonight is Jay Spearman with Piper Sandler. So I'm gonna talk about, the streets just a little bit, kind of refresh everybody's memory. And then, Jay's gonna talk about possible, or funding, if you decide, what that would look like, if you decide to move forward with some street work. So, I handed out 3 documents that I want to start off with. The first one is this one. This is a street surfacing map, and what that shows is just different types of street surfacing that you have. So, just kind of recap, the ones I really want to point out are what's highlighted in green. That's your concrete paved streets, which there are a few, and some paved intersections. And then what's highlighted in orange is what you've got where there's curb and gutter, and also what I would call bituminous surfacing. It's not real thick, 2 to 3 inches. That's the most of your streets in town. The downtown area, you've got concrete that's been overlaid with asphalt. That's that magenta or pink color. So just to give you an idea, the blue is asphalt paving where there is no curbing, so a rural section road. So that gives you just a general idea of the streets in town and what the street surface is. Okay? That all makes sense? Okay. The next handout is this one. So this is what I think we talked about this a little bit previously. Councilman Price and I had met and talked a few times about what would a potential street project look like and maybe which streets. So we looked at 5th Street from the highway up to Main Street. That's the street when you go north from the highway, which you're all aware is where the school is at and the church. And then as you proceed north, it goes into more residential from Iowa to Main Street. There's a drainage, I guess, issued at the intersection of Kansas. So we looked at those 3 blocks, and then also the block 5th Street going south of the highway. which would be a block, and then that kind of turns into a driveway that goes into the grain elevator facility. So, if you turn to the second sheet, that's a preliminary cost opinion. So there hasn't been any design work done or anything like that. It's just a desktop, rough quantities as far as looking at if that was paved on Fifth Street from Highway 12 up to Main Street with paved out with 7-inch concrete paving in between the existing concrete curb and gutter. There'd be some storm sewer work at the intersection of Kansas and Fifth Street. That intersection would have to be rebuilt. The intersection at Iowa, that's concrete paving, so we would basically connect to that, and then also at the highway. So, looking at that preliminary opinion of cost, we're getting just a hair over $1.2 million if you wanted to pave that. The one block between the highway and Iowa, that's a real wide street in there, because you've got on-street parking. But then from Iowa to Maine, that narrows down. I think it's 31 feet between the curb and gutter to pave that. Okay? The street south of there, that is on the last page, cost opinion. That one, for what we understand, that serves that elevator facility, so we'd have to beef up the concrete. So we assumed like 9-inch dowel paving between the existing concrete curb and gutter. So to pave that street, build some storm sewer, probably have to build some storm sewer down at the intersection of Omaha and Fifth Street. So that's about a little over $440,000 to build that. The cost on that one is higher, obviously, because of the 9-inch dowel paving. So if you look at that all together, you're looking at about a $1.6, $1.7 million project. This is just a snap of what it may look like. In our opinion, if you wanted to, and if you look at, back up here, if you look at the street from the highway north, that street's in bad shape. I mean, it's starting to fall apart, and it's not going to get any better. There's probably some others in town that are about in the same condition. Our opinion is if you do want to proceed with a paving project, concrete paving project, concentrate on the streets where you've got curb and gutter. Because now all you're doing is filling in between, you're not messing with driveways and those types of things. So you're gonna get more bang for the buck, so to speak, if that's what you want to do. Once again, ultimately, it's your decision if you move forward with a street project as far as which streets and what that's gonna look like. That's just our opinion. Okay. So, with that, I guess I'll turn it over to Jay. Any questions about that? Jay ran it.
That 1.6 or whatever, is just those 5 blocks. 4 blocks.
4 blocks, yes. Yep. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jay, and he's gonna talk a little bit about financing the project like this.
So the city has a couple different options when it comes to financing the street improvement projects. One being, talk louder. The city has a couple of different options.
Microphone. We have here.
The city has a couple of different options when it comes to financing street improvement projects. One's issuing highway allocation fund bonds. The city receives roughly about $110,000 a year from the state, and you can actually bond against that allocation. And if we were to bond against that allocation of $111,000, we're not limited necessarily on maturity, but just based on a 20-year repayment, we could do roughly $1,350,000 of project by using the highway allocation fund. As far as repayment on a highway allocation fund bond, you can either use the actual highway allocation from the state, or if that, in the event that that's insufficient, such that you're using those funds for other projects, you can levy a tax. That tax is subject to the 45-cent lid though. If you were to levy a tax, it would be roughly about 26 cents per $100 evaluation. If you have $100,000 of taxable valuation, you'd be looking at about $260. It's a very simple process. There are some public entities across the state that prefer to use the highway allocation fund bonds for the simple fact it's just a simple ordinance by the city council to authorize the issuance. You issue the bonds, you get your money up front, and you have your permanent financing in place. The second option is actually going through the process of creating street improvement districts. Now, there's sets of numbers after each section, just so you can kind of see the principal and interest of payments per year. If you turn back, it shows street improvement districts. When we go through and actually create a district, the city council would adopt an ordinance proposing the creation of the street improvement district. At the next meeting, then the city council would hold a public hearing on the creation of that street improvement district, and it gives the patrons who are residing along those streets that are going to be improved to come and voice their opinions either for or against. In the event that you have more than 50% of the abutting footage vote against or object to the creation of the district, in essence, then it kills the district and you cannot move forward. And that it's regardless whether you plan to assess those property owners or not. If they object more than 51% of the front footage, then it kills the project and you will not be paid. If you have less than 50% objections, then the district is created. Instead of doing the permanent financing up front like you can with highway allocation bonds, we actually do interim financing by the issuance of bond anticipation notes. Once we have substantial completion of the project and have this certificate of substantial completion from the engineer, at that point we can actually go out for the permanent financing. Right now, you have the ability to do street improvement bonds for a 15-year period. And if we were looking at doing $1.6 million over 15 years, obviously after we've done the interim financing and then substantial completion, we would be looking at a levy of 36.5 cents, and that's for the $1.6 million project. That 36.5 cents equates to about $365 per $100,000 of taxable valuation for 15 years. If we were looking at the $2 million range over a 15-year period, we'd be looking at 45.5 cents or $455 per $100,000 of taxable valuation. Now with street improvement bonds, we've gone through the process to create the district. It is a general obligation, unlimited obligation, meaning that the levy or repayment of those bonds is not subject to the 45-cent limit. You can exceed that. And so that's the benefit of going through the process of creating the districts, is you have a general obligation of unlimited tax backing those bonds. Thus, you would think ultimately we would receive somewhat lower interest rate just because the security is better. As well as it does not take away from your ability to use your highway allocation funds for other projects, as well as if we have the ability to go through and create the street improvement districts, that's my preferential process, and save the highway allocation for a later date in the event that there's an emergency where we need funding immediately and don't have time to go through the process of creating the districts. Are there any questions? It's pretty simple and straightforward. If you decide to go through and create the street improvement districts, we'll work with the attorney to create all those documents. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mayor? I just have one more thing I wanted to look at. This is the existing 1 to 6 year street plan. So I don't need a decision tonight, but we do need to prepare this document for your next fiscal year as far as what you may be looking at for future street improvements. So what's on there right now is highlighted in either orange or blue. And what's in orange That's project 17, that would be to redo the intersections in the storm sewer at Maine and Kansas. The other streets in blue are future paving projects. That's what's in the 1 and 6 right now. Just because it's in the 1 and 6 year plan does not mean that you are committed to doing that. That is, the 1 and 6 year plan is, you need to adopt the 1 and 6 year plan every year so you get the highway allocation money from the state that Jay was talking about, okay? You would have your public hearing on the 1 and 6 year plan in September, which I think that would be your meeting when you would do your adopt your budget, which when you think about it, kind of makes sense that these two are somewhat tied together. So, don't need an answer tonight, but probably within the next, for sure next month, need to know if you want to just keep it as is, if you want to add something, like maybe the streets I talked about, doesn't mean you have to, but I just need some direction as to what you want in the 1 and 6 year plan. The 1 and 6 year plan, the way we look at it, it is a future capital improvement plan for street improvements. That's the way you should look at it. Doesn't mean, so in other words, don't load this up with a whole bunch of projects that you're never gonna build, but use it as something like, okay, here's some priority streets that we probably wanna do at some point in the future. Let's have those on our plan, and then if you decide, then you can budget for those, for that work. Through like Jay and Piper Sandler, okay? So once again, doesn't mean you're committed to doing anything on here, but it is one of the requirements so you get your highway allocation money from the state every year. Also, just a reminder, that highway allocation money, whatever that dollar amount is, you have to match that with 25 cents on the dollar with the local monies. Maybe that's your reminder. So. Any questions about this document? Mayor, I apologize for interrupting you. I didn't want you to go to the next item without me talking about this, so I apologize. So. Any questions about this, or anything Jay talked about, or what I talked about? No matter what you decide, whether you decide to move forward or not move, it's a big decision, one way or the other. We're not trying to push you in any way, one direction. We're just trying to give you some information so you know what it may look like, and you can pause, think about it. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. We're here to help you. You decide at a later date, you want to talk about it again. I know let's say for sure, I will be here. I think Jay would be here too, to help out any way we can. So we're just trying to give you information so that you can make a good decision on behalf of the city.
So the annual debt service that we have, that doesn't reflect the 25%. That's just what we basically offer, the highway allocation money.
Correct.
So we'll still have that 25% that we'll have to invest in the streets in some way, shape, or form, in addition. Okay.
Yeah, that's just basically a repayment of the $1,350,000.
So we're not spending every penny that we have to make that debt payment, because we'll still have that 25%, so it'll help us out.
Correct. And then I had mentioned that on the highway allocation, how you can use either the highway allocation from the state for the bonds, or you can levy, but that levy would be subject to the 45-cent lid. There's 4 bond attorneys in the state of Nebraska. 3 of the bond attorneys' firms believe that if you levy for highway allocate, for the repayment of a highway allocation fund bond, that's subject to 45-cent statutory lid. We do have one bond attorney with QTAC Rock that is of the opinion that that would be exempt from the lid. I would have to probably play on the safe side and assume that it would be subject to 45. That's why I always say if we go through and create districts, that's the best way to get the general obligation tax. It doesn't affect your highway allocation.
Question? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the new business is the economic development discussion for our funds approval for grants. I don't know if Aaron is here tonight. Aaron Phillips? Okay, well, Aaron Phillips did have, and we discussed a couple of projects from economic development, and I don't know if the economic development committee met as of yet lately, but anyway, there were some items that we were going to consider in that point. At this venture, the tentative discussion that we had was about using economic development money to help fund a disc golf course. Everything was to help the community in funding the renovation of the signage for the community. Those are the two major things. And then, of course, obviously, following through and moving forward on the grant application for homeowners and for businesses. And so without Aaron's presence, I think, and without a meeting, we'll move on from there unless you have some questions.
I just want to say that I have talked to Aaron and Kim Sawatsky about the disc golf, and it does sound pretty interesting. It costs about $400 a hole, and you have 18 holes, and each, like the city could fund it, or the community club has offered to fund some of the holes. But one suggestion was maybe each business could fund a hole, like James Murphy Insurance has one hole, and then you pay for that hole to be built and have a plaque or a sign or whatever at the hole. So that's kind of a neat idea, I think. But people are in disc golf leagues, and they travel around to different towns and play. So it would bring people to town. And it's nice to include recreation and healthy activities. So I think it was gonna be
North Park that we talked about.
the North Park, and then maybe kind of over towards the softball fields.
That way?
Dan, am I saying this right? Where the disc golf would be?
Somewhere down North Park, Kim's watching the road up there.
Yeah. I think it would be less than $5,000 to do the whole course. And then you can sell, businesses could sell they're not frisbees, but they're kind of like frisbees.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the next thing, which should be Johnson Service Sewer Liners. We have Monty, is that correct?
Yep.
Yep. Welcome, Monty.
So I'm Monty with Johnson Service Company. We're the company that currently comes in and does the sewer cleaning in town. So, I'm Monty with Johnson Service Company. We're the company that currently comes in and does the sewer maintenance, cleaning and TVing of the sewer lines and also the manhole rehab. So far over the last couple of years, we've televised 2/3 of the community. We go through cleaning the debris out of the system, put high-tech cameras down in the sewers. We take an HD video of the entire system, call out where defects are in the pipe, call out where the services are located. Through that process and through talking with Larry a little bit about the street project and things like that, I wanted to make sure that the pipe underneath the ground is in good shape. Just to make sure if we're gonna remove the surface, it's probably the most expensive part of replacing the type of that pipe, that we're not gonna be putting the surface on and then the pipe's gonna collapse during the process or gonna go bad. So, I evaluated the first 2 years of the pipe that we've looked at throughout the city. The pipe's actually not in that bad a shape. The major defect that we have in it is we have a water infiltration coming in through the seams and through cracks and holes in the system. So we're getting additional, when the groundwater's high, get a lot of groundwater back in the system, and that's through the majority of the city. And that's just, something basic in this area, or on the eastern side of the state that we see a lot more of, than in other areas, just due to groundwater. The problem with the groundwater leaking into the system is they normally create voids around the pipe. So then we don't know what that surface outside of the pipe looks like and the condition of the surface around. So as you start to drive heavy equipment and all those things on top to do the repaving, you don't know what you could run into with that. That's something beyond what we can do with our technology. But lining prior to this, if you're concerned on those areas that you're going to be recovering the streets, it is definitely an option to do the lining of the sewer line prior to. You're not going to have any structural issues after that. One thing I wanted to show you was actually what I am talking about when it comes to sewer lining. So this is an 8-inch felt tube called an M-tube. It's made by Mississippi Textiles. This is a technology where we actually blow this into the sewer line. So from manhole to manhole, we blow this through the sewer line. It's impregnated with a resin, with a polyester resin. That's a blue color. That's where, when it cures out, it actually becomes this product. It becomes this hardened product. This is a 100-year design line, so it's a permanent fix. So once you put this in the sewer, you get 100 years out of the sewer, longer lasting than the actual current product that's in the ground now. The benefits to this is with your guys' situation with having groundwater. The reason why you have most of your groundwater is you have clay tile pipe. So every 6 feet, there was a new piece of clay tile pipe put in. And so you have those seams for every piece of pipe. This is seamless. It's from one manhole to the next. It's seamless. You remove the seams. This is actually designed as a structural repair, not as a cure for infiltration or for root infiltration, but it is a byproduct of it that it's mostly used for that purpose anymore. A couple of the materials I brought with me. One, I wanted to show you the example on just a normal, just on a normal piece of pipe. If you imagine this PVC was your hose pipe, and then the new pipe that went in, it does not attach itself to the hose pipe, so there's always an angular space there. So when we're talking about water infiltrating through the hose pipe, and then we have the new liner, we're going to have water leak back into the system again. You're going to kind of defeat the purpose of putting the liner in there. You're still going to get water back in the system. So when you're talking about an amount of water, 1 5-gallon per minute leak per day is about 7,200 gallons per day. Over a year, it can cost you in processing fees at your sewer plant, it can cost you up to $20,000 a year just to process that clean water for 1 leak. So it can be a pretty costly thing just in your current situation with just processing the clean water, or as you guys have looked into possibly doing lagoons, taking up that additional lagoon space and things like that with the extra groundwater that comes in. So if you're ever looking down this road, or you want to continue down this road of looking at lining, at the end of each pipe, we put these end seals in. This is a hydrophilic end seal. It goes inside the hose pipe, and then the liner is shot inside of it and run through. And when this is an example of the same thing, unrestricted with water. So it absorbs the water, fills up that angular space, and doesn't allow any of the water to get back into the system again. So it blocks off. You can actually seal that entire block system up by using those end seals. If you don't use the end seals, it's kind of a waste. The end seals cost about $400. So with the total cost of what an 8-inch pipe costs, on average, to reline one city block is about $12,000, 350-foot city block, compared to about $150,000 to dig it up and replace it. So it's greatly cheaper to do. It's also a time factor. So if you've experienced with the manhole rehab, if you've actually seen it done, the guys can get done 4 to 8 manholes a day. We have those manholes and they're good for another 50 years. Most people don't even know that they were in town doing them just because there's not a big footprint. Same thing with the lining. So from manhole to manhole, to redo this, put a liner back in, go in robotically. We go in robotically and reinstate the services. So we never have to dig anything up. takes 5 hours per line. So in a day's time, we can do two blocks. No interruption to services, no interruption to really anything. There might be a little bit of siren gas smell that comes back through, but that's washed out when you use your sink or your toilet or whatever. But it's actually a pretty neat process to be able to redo this stuff trenchlessly and very affordable to do. So, yeah.
I got 2 questions.
Okay, I knew you would.
Not all sewer lines run perfectly flat, they're like this.
Correct.
How flexible is this stuff for trucks, tractors, semis, ground moves, you know what, and I know what. Ground moves, there's a pipe, that stuff that's in there, is that gonna be a flexible, so we don't have, did they ever break?
No, once it cures out, it's not gonna break. Once it cures out and hardens out, it's gonna be stronger than the PVC or the clay or anything else that you have in the ground currently. The tensile strength of this material is stronger than all of those. Now, as far as when it's installed, it's flexible like this material, so it forms itself to the pipe. So valleys, gaps, anything like that, if there's a significant hole in the pipe, you can see where it dimples itself in. Actually, the services that come into that service, or into that main, when we use air pressure to cure that out, steam pressure, when it cures out, it actually dimples up where the services or where the private services come in, so you can find those and reinstate those robotically. So it is flexible to that point, but once it cures out over that 2-hour period and becomes hard, you can drive a truck over that stuff.
So my next question is, all sewer lines have movement in it all the time. You're gonna blow that in there. You're not gonna get it completely dry when you stick it in, correct? I mean, how does that, you're gonna have some sewage or something, how do you get that so it's tight up against our existing pipe on the bottom?
So depending on the depth and the size of pipe it is, there's pressures that these are rated for. We know what the pressures are of what it takes to inflate that. So once we blow that through, we use air pressure to blow it through from one manhole to the next. We cap it on both ends, and we have a boiler truck. We actually use steam pressure to inflate that and hold it until it's cured out. Now, the way we do that is we have gauges on both ends and also temperature sensors on both ends. We know exactly the cure rate and exactly at the point when that's hardened out.
Bring that over here once, I wanna show it, maybe I ain't asking the proper thing.
That's fine.
Alright, your sewer line sits like this is going in there. There's sewage in here.
Yep.
This gets blowed in.
Yep.
So how do you stop the sewage? How do you get that tight up against like that?
So your daily flow on your lines isn't really great. Normally when we do this, it's normally after 8 o'clock, so most people are at work, at school, things like that, so there's not as much usage on the system. So we will plug the upstream manholes. We'll plug the upstream lines in the manhole.
Nothing coming down at that point?
Nothing comes down. We clean the lines, and then with our vac trucks, we stay ahead of the debris that would be coming up in the next manhole. Now, if we have to, if there's enough flow, then we will put bypass pumps in. We'll bypass it.
Pump it out and then blow it in there and then let it come back in.
But our trucks hold 9 yards of waste, so it holds 18,000 gallons. I mean, you're not gonna have 18,000. Your daily flow's 30.
So when this goes in there, this drain pipe is basically dry of any.
It's got 99% of anything in that pipe is gone. It's been cleaned. So we're running 1,700 PSI of water pressure, but we're running about 80 gallons per minute. So we're flooding that pipe and cleaning, scrubbing that pipe out. So there's not going to be anything in there. So the only suggestion I would make moving forward is I would like to TV, as we're already doing on the contract, get that other third done. So that if there are damages to that other third of town in the pipe that we don't know about right now, that we'd be addressing everything at once.
You have those marked, which ones are in bad shape compared to some that are in decent?
Yeah, so the piece of paper I gave you is from the first 2/3 of the system that we've televised so far. I've marked these out, the red or the maroon being the most severe, down to that mustard color, which is less severe. Now, there's lines that we've televised that aren't on this list because there's nothing wrong with them. I don't see any damage to them, I don't see any structural issues, I don't see any infiltration coming in, so there's no reason to touch those, except for age. And there's nothing I don't
You sent me
see.
a sheet or a board or whoever, and it showed all the towns that you have done
Yeah.
in the past, right?
So we've, up to this point, over the last 20 years, we've put about 750,000 feet of this in the ground. And as far as when we talk about rating these and the deficiencies that we see, we clean for about 75% of all the communities in the state of Nebraska and about 30% of all the communities in the state of Kansas. So we see about 1.6 to 2 million feet a year of sewer line, and we review it just like this. So we know what.
So your suggestion is the ones that are in the red are probably the ones that need attention.
The more severe, yeah, and if you can read the notes that are
Everybody
there.
knows where they live, so they can see kind of where the bad ones are.
Yeah, when you see the notes on there, most of it is infiltration. You're gonna see water infiltration.
What about roots? You got roots on here, you know, roots can pop these things, and you know that too. Roots
Yeah,
can pop-
but when you,
pop these,
when you remove the seams, there's no seams for it to get in.
Okay.
So you're eliminating that. And the seams mostly come through those gaps and those cracks and
And that
different
was
things like that.
back whenever this town was.
Yep.
sewer lined up.
Yep, just like almost every community, in the world anymore was built with that same material, so.
Very good project, I think.
Once again, the estimated cost is what was on.
So, just like a budgetary number, just to throw out, for 10-inch pipe, you're probably looking at $44, a linear foot, about $38 for 8-inch. So you're looking about $44,000 on the 10-inch and $300,000 for the 8, if you decided to do all of it. I mean, that's not something you'd have to,
Is that
to
price,
do all of it.
does that price includes the setup and everything too that you just said?
Yeah, mobilization, I mean, this, I'm just kind of throwing a budgetary price that would be on the average of what we've been saying. We do get price increases on material and that, so most of the time, the budgetary price I'm gonna give you is gonna be higher than what the cost is. When it comes in lower, then you get billed lower, so, I'd rather be high than low. I'm not gonna tell you it's gonna cost you $250,000 and send you a bill for $400.
So what's the minimum, manhole amount? I mean, you got maybe say 6 of them, or you gotta do 8 of them, or 10 of them?
That's up to you. If you wanna do one, you can do one. It's just you're gonna pay the mobilization cost for one. You know, it's gonna be accumulated in there. So we do this in a number of different ways. We do this for, we do an entire town at once, and they go out for, just street projects, and they get it all done. Down to where we have communities that do a little bit every year. Just like you're doing your manholes on a budgetary, you budget just a little bit every year, and you just do 2-3 lines at a time. And we're already doing liners. We do liners in O'Neill and Norfolk and Meadow Grove and
So we have
Newcastle.
we have a new part of town, new development, and a lot of that is this newer plastic. The older part of town's got those 6-foot clay top.
Yes.
So have you had to replace the newer part of the plastic with these things?
We have.
Not near as much?
And not as much. Most of the time that we've had to do repairs to the PVC pipe is due to craftsmanship. Since the technology has gone from clay tile pipe in about the mid 80s, it's more of the plastics. Most of the pipe that's still put in the ground today is clay. It's still, because that's the material to use. But the craftsmanship from when this was put in 50, 60 years ago compared to the craftsmanship of what it's put in now, it's just not the same. And so what I see a lot of is just, somebody drives an excavator over the top to try to compact the ditch back out and snaps the pipe. They don't know that until somebody like us comes in and televises it, and then you've got a split in the pipe. And so then
Is that hard to replace or something like that?
most of the time it's gotta be dug up. Now, this is not the only solution out there. There's a number of other technologies depending on what kind of situation that you have. Whether, if you're only 6 foot deep and it's down a gravel, alley, and there's no utilities in the ground, it might be cheaper to dig it. So we always have to evaluate those things to see which is the best the best value for what it is we are trying to do. But it's not always the perfect solution. It's just a popular one out there that's.
For what you've seen in our town here, in the old part of town, which I call the old part.
Yeah.
Usually the new part is where like, just right, south of the swimming pool is the
Yeah.
old part. Everything over here has been old town.
Yeah. So what I've seen from the pipe that I looked at, and it was mostly the central and eastern part of town, we still have the northwestern part of town to televise. I haven't seen from the pipe that I look at every day and all the millions of feet that I look at, the pipe's not in, like, the clay's not in bad shape. The problem is the infiltration.
The seams.
Yes, the seams. And so the seams, cracks, there's holes, there's roots. They're not incredibly severe. The problem is when you, like I said, when you have groundwater, and right now, I only saw a couple spots where there's active groundwater coming in, but there's staining in the pipe. So when the groundwater comes up, you're getting a lot of water within the system. I know I've talked, from the times I've worked with Larry to Pat to now Dustin, that when you have a rain event, 2 inches, an inch, your daily flow might go from 30,000 gallons to 90,000 gallons. And that extra 60,000 gallons is rainwater. So you're storing that rainwater or you're processing that rainwater. So
when you got a manhole, let's say this is the manhole here, you got a line going this way and a line going this way.
Yep.
How far do you come in, just right to the edge of the manhole?
Right to the flow line, not unless the flow line needs to be redone or it's
But I mean, I understand you don't go across the manhole, you gotta leave it,
Yeah.
at that point there.
Sometimes we shoot through the manholes if we can, if they've got 200-foot, sections, we'll shoot through them, and then we'll just cut the invert out.
Okay.
Sometimes the invert needs to be redone anyways. So,
If you look in the red, the dark red, some of those are on Sheridan, Colorado Street, because of the cracks and infiltration.
The movement of the ground too makes a difference too.
there's a lot of great information out there. Actually, if you want to see some video of what the product looks like, the installation project process and that, you go to our website, go under services and look up CITP lining or point repair lining. We have videos of all of it. You can actually watch the processes and see how it's done.
What's your website?
Which is johnsonservicecompany.com.
You are, right now, just 2/3 of the way through town, you have 1/3 left to complete.
Correct.
And then, so we don't have a percentage or ratio what we're gonna come up with, we have no idea what the other third is gonna bring.
It could be great, it could be bad shape.
So this time it'd be remiss to say, hey, let's do the red because there might be critical points down the road.
Yeah, it's only gonna get worse. I mean, it is aging pipe, so everybody has it. The other problem with when you have infiltration coming in is it's washing away, like I said, the ground surface or that packed surface around the pipe. So clay pipe is great unless you expose it to sunlight or you touch it and crack it. Then it's very brittle. But as long as it's encased properly, it'll stay in the ground for hundreds of years.
So your time frame, let's say if the board decides maybe to go start, what is the time frame that you could say, okay, we put you on the list, how long are we looking at to maybe do something?
We do have current contracts up through the end of the budget year of this year. We're looking at a couple other projects up here after that point, before the snowfall or before December. We might be able to get it in there, otherwise it would restart in March.
You don't do it in the wintertime?
No, it's too cold, yeah. The other advantage you guys have when you're talking about the street project and that, if you look through some of your reports, and you guys should have all those reports from all the stuff that we do in the video, is your systems are deep enough, and you're 10-foot, 12-foot deep in a lot of places, and there's quite a bit of detachment that has to happen to damage something that low, but it's a great idea, like I said, if you're gonna remove the street surface, to go ahead and get the stuff bad, just go ahead and it might be cheaper to dig it up and down. But if you're worried, I have seen it where people put brand new streets on and they come back and the pipe's damaged, and in some situations we can't do it. So
Would it be, in your professional opinion, would it be best to maybe start putting the pavement on top and then repairing the sewer lines underneath, or vice versa?
I mean, I would think vice versa. I'd get the sewer line secured. Same thing, I don't know if water lines are in there too. If you got water lines in there, might be another thing to look at replacing, just so you don't have to worry about digging that surface up anymore. anymore, and it's costly to put that surface down, so taking care of the stuff underground at the same time is normally the best bet. I don't know when you guys are looking at doing that, but, I mean, that runs into scheduling
Right,
too.
the water line basically runs along the curb of the road in our town, most of them.
That's good.
You know, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And some go underneath the road because the main line's on one side of the road, they gotta get underneath to get over here.
Yeah.
So. Okay, I have no more questions. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mike.
All right, you bet. Thank you.
Okay, the next item of new business would be a siren for the north side of the city. Donna received a letter in conjunction with that.
Back in early May, I got actually an email from Kelsey Jelenic, I think. She's from Knox County. And she let me know that she received a letter from one of our residents that lives up on the north side. And said that when the siren went off, she couldn't hear it. And she was worried that they weren't going to be able to hear it in emergencies and thought maybe there should be another siren. So Kelsey went to looking at things that would help us out, and she actually had said that she looked into some available funding. And I just got a letter from her today because she was going to be here and wasn't able to make it. And she said, "Good morning, Donna. Sorry it took me a bit to get back to you, and I'm sorry it doesn't work for me to make it to the meeting tonight. I've looked into the grant process for a siren project. I'd initially received an email from the Crofton resident on the north side of town stating that they couldn't hear the siren currently. I've also visited with some of the fire and rescue who agreed an upgrade and or an additional siren would be beneficial. The siren would need to be installed on public property, and the city obviously need to be on board with the projects. The grant process would start with a notice of intent, which you would fill out with my assistance. We'll also need a letter of financial commitment from the city of Crofton stating that they understand the city would be responsible for the cost, maintenance, and reporting of the sirens and siren project, and then we proceed as if the grant wasn't there. I would reach out to at least three siren companies for estimates, and the city would be able to choose which company to proceed with. A cost-benefit analysis would need to be conducted. Recent estimates have been around the $35,000 to $40,000 range per siren. The grant would cover up to 75% of the cost, with the city being responsible for the other 25%. The city would pay upfront for the siren and installation. Then after the sirens have been inspected, the city might have to sit on that $70,000 to $80,000 cost for 1 to 2 years before being reimbursed. Please let me know what other questions you might have, and let me know what is decided at the meeting. Thanks, Kelsey. And then Mr. Waldenek actually brought us an estimate for a siren.
Okay, so you have, Mr. Wellman, you have something to add?
I can find it.
Just kind of really quickly today, I got a hold of, this one here is from Federal, I believe. And there's a few different ways we can go about doing it. Both companies that I talked to actually kind of would like to keep that whistle in kind of more of the center of the town, but get a taller pole put up and a more, larger decibel amount, so that, like, one of them has a 5,500, a square range of 6,500 square feet at 130 decibel, which I don't know how easy it is to figure out what decibel sounds like, but they wanted that machine to be up 100 foot in the air to be that accurate out of 6,500 feet. The other company that I talked to, he never did give me an email today, but the smaller one of his two sirens, if we put it here in the middle of town, would reach 500 feet and be audible 500 feet north of 891 road. That was the range on that, so that has to be about the same amount of decibels too. The range, a price range on these are about more close to the ballpark of 38, or not 38, 31, or 3,200, or $32,000. The other company is a little bit less money, and this company is set up to, that $31,000 covers everything. Covers them to come put it in, covers all the equipment, the 100-foot pole, the whole 10 yards. The other company is working me up some other stuff. We could probably have the siren be set here. We would have to get an REA company to get us pole, try to set that pole for us, and put the siren on top of it, the REA company, or, you know, Johnson's Electric or whoever. But I don't have the prices for them yet, so, and I'll try to find one more. This one was out of Kansas City, the other one's out of Colorado. They're kind of tough to find, the local people to do that kind of work, so. It's just some ideas, I think if we can get a grant started on it, we might as well go ahead and try to get that going forward. What's that?
The only question I have, unless somebody else does, is that, is the grant to, as it was in the letter, to add an additional, or would be adding additional, or would we just be updating the other one? Would we remove the other one, or would we keep both, or what would this do? This estimate would be to add an additional one in the downtown area, and would we replace the old one then, or would it be in addition to the old one?
No, it all really depends on what we decide. I know both of the salesmen that I talked to, when they Google mapped it, they both said, well, you're about most essentially where it's at now. Instead of moving it clear to the north end of town, they said, if you put it on the north end of town, you're losing half of your distance. You know, at half of your distance, 2,500 or 3,000 feet is going north, and that much is going south. So it's, I only got about 2 hours to talk to each one of them, not even quite 2 hours, so I just thought I would try to get some kind of numbers put together if we're gonna go ahead and try to act on this.
Okay, so I guess we need to talk to Kelsey to see for sure if this grant is only available for an additional, or if it's, if we can upgrade our existing. We would have to check into that and see for sure what the stipulations are. So I guess at this time, I don't know how to proceed, if we would approve the purchase, or do you want to table this, and do we have a definitive date when we need to let them know, or more estimates, more information?
Yeah, more information would help.
All right, so I'll,
But we still need to find out if this is gonna be replacing siren or.
right, I will see if the grant covers the replacement of an existing siren, or if it's just simply, not simply, but if it's an additional siren in another location. Okay, any questions? If not, we can move forward to the closing of the streets for the 3C's car show.
The Crofton Community Club Cruising Day Car Show is coming up August 26th, and we got a letter that says the annual event in South Park has been since 2006. This is our 18th year. The CCC is asking permission to close one block of 3rd Street between Highway 12 and Iowa Street on Saturday, August 26th from 8 until 3 p.m. In the event that we receive more than 100 cars, it may be necessary to extend into the block going north. This has never been necessary in the past, since a normal registration has been between 60 and 90 vehicles. The Crofton Community Club will follow the directed health measures put into place by the state of Nebraska and the North Central District Health Department at that time. Letters will be sent to 3rd Street residents about the car show and asking them to keep the street clear. We're also requesting that the restrooms in South Park be clean, stocked, and available. And if anybody have checked them out, they are shining, they're spotless, because we have a wonderful lady that's working with us now that's taking great care of that, so that won't be a problem. Joyce Stevens sent this, and she actually, I talked with her, she says she's been talking to people already. They've got people that are coming in, and the group is getting larger and larger, so they may end up with a lot more cars this year.
Date again?
26th of August.
I guess we need a motion to close the street and potentially streets for the 3C.
Make that motion.
Motion made.
I'll second.
Seconded by Pikes. Miller?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Pikes?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Next item would be a grapple board for the skid loader. We currently lease a skid loader from Caton. And we have equipment that we own and attachments for the grapple boards, and Dustin put the grapple board through the test the other day in the storm, clearing up trees or whatever, and can give testimony to its efficiency and its ability to do its work. But we have one estimate, but I don't know if we did we get one from Caton?
I'm still waiting on a dollar amount yet.
Okay.
From Casey.
So, pending that other bid, I guess we should, if you would want to, we could table that and wait. Okay, let's table that estimate on the grapple for the purchase of the grapple. The next item is the CBDG grant estimate for doors for the auditorium. Looked into two, Mr. Pites and I had meetings and conferences with two people for doors that's in here in the packet. One company was out of Norfolk, the other one is Harding Glass out of Yankton. It's hard to compare here, but we went with the recommendations of the two companies, and they have a little bit different ideas or philosophies on how they wanted to approach this. The one from Harding Glass is that you can obviously see is to basically make what we have only better, remodel, new, and then of course obviously on the south door here would be to have a button for handicap access so that the door will be fully functionable with a button and an installation of that door. And all bronze framing and finishing, so that Harding Glass one's $14,500. The other one is the company out in Norfolk, I believe. They had an estimate of about $19,000, and they wanted to, $19,586, and they want to had a different approach to what they wanted in the front door. Instead of a double door like we currently have facing east here, they were going to replace that with a single door with a door light or whatever on the side panel of it, and do that differently. The door over here would basically be the same by the same company, same process, just by different company or a different vendor or provider. So I guess it's just a kind of a personal preference what you.
The two doors from, the door from the glass edge, he figured a 3'6" door would be wider than a 3 foot in case we had to have something wide go through there. This door would be the same way, and up there in the east end would be a 42-inch door, and then a side light to that fill the hole with the ceiling. So we have an oversized door on both of these, east and the south. So that's the difference between Harding and the glass edge from Norfolk. And then we had some estimates for the concrete ramps over here, which desperately needs some attention to. So I contacted Fisher Custom Concrete, Fordyce, I guess, for having from the fire department. Having the fire department over here by the west side, and it goes all the way across over here to wherever the ramp had a sloped area on both sides, so there will be no step up. You walk over on the east side, it'll be a sloped up, and over here on the west side, it'll be just a gradual slope within the conditions that has to be done. That was $49,500.
18. And I had Brent Arns. He has slopes on both sides for $4,500. And Lizzie Concrete out of Huntington had a bid of $26.75. That's a demo, full depth cutting, 6-inch slab, ramp going both ways. So they're all doing the same technique of the ramps that we need over there. That's not including the handrail that we'd have to probably put, and we didn't know what it was gonna look like until we get the ramps put in. How that ramp's handrail's gotta be. So that's not in this estimate. So we have some decision to make what we're gonna do here. So we got 3 bids in the concrete, 2 bids on the door. So one's $14,495 from Hardy Glass. The other one's $19,589 from Norfolk for the doors only, and the wiring has to be, we have to supply the wiring for this door here for a push button. And we haven't really got anybody to, I think, I don't know, anybody gave us a price on that yet, have they?
No, Merkel was available to do it, but we had a big estimate.
We have to figure out what we're gonna do here first. So there will be no electric door on the east, it'll just be an open door. Well, because we got the steps there, we can't have a push button over there, because there's no way a wheelchair can get up there. Everybody understand that?
In addition to that, we did bid, how many hundreds of feet of concrete in the park?
Yeah, we had first thought we could do the sidewalks from Highway 12 all the way till the fire road here. And there'll be an entrance going through the gazebo and from the shelter to the veterans place, and from the veterans up to this corner up here. So there'd be sidewalk accessibility to everything, but that was an estimate of $46,000. So that was just the concrete, and the handicap was included in it. So that's what we got. So I don't know if we're gonna spend $46,000 to do all the concrete in South Park, or just do the handicap, which needs to be done on the CBG plus the doors.
So this door would be the same with both companies, right?
Harding Glass would have double door from Huntington, double door to the east, just like they got. And this door would be the same as this, okay?
So both companies are gonna do the same thing with this door?
This door. The Norfolk company will change that out, so it's a wider door and sidelight.
And then, Yankton would have the double doors.
Right.
Just like it is now.
Right.
And the side light with the one door would be a bigger door?
It'll be they're gonna both be, I think that's possibly 42 inches, I didn't get a tape and measure, it's supposed to be 42 inches here, and a 42 inch there, or double doors like they got there. That's just a 36-inch door, you gotta open both up to get 6 foot. Understand?
I've got Craig Jansen must have bid this. We can give time somebody local.
What's that?
Craig Jansen must have bid these doors.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, so I wanted to. He didn't know anybody that had Bob and I decided we had electric doors for this one here. Not everybody sells them, not everybody puts them in. Unless you know somebody, I don't know where he's from, so.
Craig
You want-
Jansen?
Who?
Craig Jansen?
Craig Jansen? He never said nothing.
There's one sitting in the room here that you could have asked. I mean, been local, not out of state or out of town. Gosh, you less.
We can table this till next month and get another estimate if that's what you want, but,
And if someone wants to submit a bid, did you replace the doors?
Well,
the estimates?
the thing is that, we're looking at bronze pre-finish, so we don't paint at all, and it'd be tempered glass on both of these openings here. So.
And we had multiple people interested in replacing the doors, but when it was the handicap doors.
Them are the ones we had problems with. Nobody wanted to touch those things there, but unless they do it on a regular basis, I don't know.
Are those estimates just for the doors, or is that installation and everything?
Installed.
What did they cost? I mean,
Alright. So on the grant part of it, is there any part or portion of that that you'd like to go through on? Because the cement work out there is not contingent on the door, and vice versa. If there's any part or portion like you'd like to move forward on, you can do that.
Could I ask a question?
Yep.
Who will administer the CDBG grant? Is that Northeast Community College? I think you have to have an administrator, and I think you've already got that agreement.
Northeast Nebraska Economic Development, who came and addressed us before and approved these things. She was here and talked to us, and we had to we modified the grant at one point in time, 6-8 months ago, I think, and, because it was pre-approved before, or approved before, and then we made modifications to improve these cutouts. So it's just that the original estimates, and of course, obviously the times we're in, is that the original estimates that we had would have, the 30-some thousand, whatever dollars is, would have covered all these things, and now we can't come close to doing all of what we'd like to do. So, these are approved, and the Knox County Economic Development has approved these. We just want to know what part or portion we'd like to move forward with.
And do we have to use this by 2024?
It's currently being added to at this point in time, and I did not see a sunset clause on the grant funding. I think that at some point in time, if we don't expend some of the allocations, we'd have to go reapply, resubmit again to use it. We already have, the money's already here, this part of it's here, and we've been approved to spend it for these particular items. If we were gonna change that, then we're gonna go through a reapproval process. So I guess the question is, put the doors aside and see if there's anybody else that would like to give us estimates on the doors, right? Okay, I can do that. And then the next thing would be the cement work for the handicap ramp. It's available access from both sides. If you want to make a motion to move forward that, or what you want to do.
I think we need to make a decision on these three contractors to, the concrete needs to be done first, probably, because it's in bad shape.
Sure, and then there will be another, which we don't have an estimate yet, because the configuration of concrete will obviously change the configuration of handrail, so we'll get estimates on the handrail after.
Handrail has to be after we
Right.
see the concrete.
Yes.
So this is all for the same thing?
Pardon?
These are all doing the concrete out
Both sides to be ramped up, you know.
I don't know why that half the price difference. Yeah. I only talked to one of those three contractors. Mr. Price, I believe, has talked to two of them. And as long as they're comparing apples with apples here, there's no real comparison.
When could they do these? Did they tell you a time frame?
Well, they said they'd wait till after the cruising days, because we don't want anything for it. They said it'd have to be after, probably in September, they could probably get at it. Two of them told me, I don't know what Mr. Arms told me.
Yeah.
So Lizzie could do it right away?
Well, they both thought they could, they just said they gotta know, I mean, for their work. But, I told them that we got a big event coming up on the 26th of August. I said we don't want anything tore up or, you know, take away from what we're trying to do there.
I make a motion to approve Lizzie to do the concrete work outside.
Doesn't say that any of them.
They don't say no concrete, just concrete on it.
Fisher's got 15 sticks of rebar, and, ours don't have no rebar in his, he don't have it on here. I would think he know how to do it, but I'm not gonna question him. And, Lacey don't have nothing about rebar, the only one that does is Fisher.
Even
Has
if
rebar.
we could ask Lizy, and it's $150, so we could ask Lizy if he doesn't already plan on doing that, to add that.
I can ask Lacey if he's gonna figure rebar in it.
And we want him to include something.
Well, yeah, we want rebar,
Okay.
So you want me to, we got some time, I mean, I can call him and ask him if he can rebar figured in his estimate for 26 something. Okay?
I think we should go ahead.
Make a motion. That's cool. Yep.
I make a motion,
Yep.
James seconded it.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve Lacey as a contractor for the ramp on the south side of the city auditorium. So with that, it would be Murphy,
Yes.
Pipes,
Yes.
Albany,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
The next item of new business would be the Knox County Economic Development Grant. We have out beside me, check for the city of Crofton from Knox County, for the sum of $10,000. And that is, was kind of a rush deal. Larry and I attended a meeting, and I attended a meeting prior to that as well with Knox County Economic Development. And we had neglected at some point in time to file or finish up our paperwork or reporting of our other expenditures we did with the $10,000. And when they were handing out the $10,000 notifications, they went by Crofton, and I said, what about Crofton? And they said, well, you guys haven't spent your last $10,000, so we can't give you $10,000 additional dollars. And that was just a technicality. We had not submitted our our reimbursement claim. Yeah, our contingencies for that. After we submitted the contingencies, they will work and get all caught up, and then send a new plan to them for spending. And they sent us this check where we tentatively agreed on the program as we're gonna, for that grant application, we're gonna work on developing our park over here for camping park sites, to upgrade our electrical and horse and cement there. And so that's a good addition, and we're glad to have that money. All right, any questions about that? If not, the next would be the recall election to set the date for the election. By ordinance, is that what it is? By resolution, we have to approve a date for the recall. Joanne Fisher at the Knox County recommended, there's a stipulation that you need to have 50 days or 52 business days before that election, that we have to certify what the date is. She recommended that we go with Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023 as a recall date notice. In addition to that, we have a resolution in addition to that to, as we talked before, and the council approved the resolution for the addition of a half a cent sales tax, which we would have to have a town hall.
Is it a half cent or half percent? It's kind of been floating both ways. I didn't know, is it half percent or half cent? It makes a difference.
A half a penny, half a cent of sales tax. And so we would add that on, and we have that resolution as well. So with that.
That 0.5% is for the swimming pool.
The 0.5% is specifically, swimming pool facilities and parks.
Plus we have that 20% of that, 1% already.
Right, there's a 1% already lost local option sales tax, which is 1%, so this would be an additional 0.5%.
So we get 18,000 roughly dollars in a year's time in sales tax on that 20%, correct?
Yeah, as Mr. Cooper explained it from the bank before, is that with the addition of the 1.5 cent to the sales tax, we would be able to fund essentially fund the pool with the additional resources that we already have available. The pre-approved plan for the pool would be able to be financed almost exclusively, real close to exclusively by the 0.5% sales tax plus the 20% of the local option sales tax that we already have. So we get the pool that we already approved with the 0.5% sales tax.
And everybody that spends money in Crofton is partaking into it because it's a sales tax. Correct?
Yep. So with that, I believe it's resolution number 2023-1, 2023-2. Okay, separate. We need a motion to approve one or either. The 2023-1 is, no, that is the vote. Oh, no, you're right, sorry, that is the 0.5%, you're right.
The
Sorry.
0.5% is
Yep.
2023
Yes, that is correct. So we need a motion to approve that order, resolution.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a hearing after this,
Correct.
I'll make that motion to approve the resolution 2023-1 for the 0.5% sales tax for the pool.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heiss?
Yes.
Wagoner?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
And Murphy. Okay, the second resolution would be the establishing the September 12th date for the recall election.
I'll make a motion to establish the September 12th date.
I'll second it.
With that, Mr. Wagoner?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? And Mr. Heiss.
Yes.
And with that, then of course, obviously, after we have a town hall meeting and discussion with those two resolutions being passed, we can put those together. The
Do you know a
estimate,
date yet for the time for the discussion then? Or we just set some kind of date to have a public discussion?
we have not established one yet,
Okay.
but we will, and we'll publish it. With that, if we combine the two of them, then the cost of the recall election is, by Joanne Fisher, is $3,500 to $4,000. And so, we'll have the other item on the ballot as well, so we can not have to spend an additional $3,500 to $4,000 on that, if we can get the meeting taken care of. All right, any questions, comments, or concerns about that?
So it costs the city $3,500 to $4,000 to do a recall?
Yeah, that's how much the election cost us. Well, that's where we're at. Okay. And then, the next item on the thing is, ordinance that we got to take care of. Discontinuation or continuation of the recycling shop. If we look at the expenses, the recycling out there is, yes, there is a grant for the recycling. The recycling grant, over the past of its duration, has given the city about $36,000, and a recycling pickup per year has exceeded that quite extensively. So we are in the hole with the recycling to the tune of around $8,000 annually. So what we would like for you to consider is, and the recycling is an excellent addition to our community, but the question is as a council, where are we at as far as, do we want to spend the $8,000 annually to continue the recycling and have that recycling available to our citizens, or are we willing to go on and discontinue that in some other way?
I think it's a good deal.
I can't see losing $8,000.
is the current recycling the only option? I don't know.
Is that through ours?
Yeah. Yes, it's ours. They're a current vendor that we use for our pickup, but I don't know what you wanna do. It's just that, you know, it is a cost, but it is obviously a service provided. It's kinda like we talked about before, there are other services we provide for our community that do cost, that are a cost to our city, but it's.
If we don't use the recycling, has anybody checked in and see if our garbage rates be going up because everybody's gonna have more garbage on?
Our costs for garbage rates were given to us this week, right? Today, and they do reflect
An increase.
yeah, and an increase.
So there's an increase and we still lose $8,000 on recycling.
Right, we're gonna go.
So would it make sense to look at how maybe increasing our garbage service to pay for the $8,000 that we're paying for recycling through audits?
Yeah, this is definitely a consideration. We can look into that.
So is that 36,000 a year? So the recycling cost? $44,000 a year.
No. We get $3,900 a year for, yeah, for a grant. That's what we get from the grant. And the cost of that, the recycling pickup was $13,000. That's $10,000, you know, $9,000 or $10,000 difference between what the grant pays us and what we're
Not making nothing on that garbage.
what's costing us.
So the recycle costs $13,089 per year. And we get a grant for $3,938 per year.
That's right, right.
$9,000.
So $8,000.
Or $9,000.
So it just basically comes down to it. I have not pooled, as of yet, not pooled the citizens and had an informal or formal vote to say, do you think, do you want to increase your garbage pickup rate to pay for that? Or do you want to discontinue that? I guess we'll leave that in the capable hands of the elected official, what you'd like to see done. It's up to you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I add, we're providing that for the whole community, right? And we have no restrictions, so people from any town in this area can come and dump their recyclables.
Yeah, and we have noted, I have noted, there's vehicles from multiple counties that stop here.
Different cars going there all the time.
So if we're going to raise the rates, it's only going to be the citizens of Crofton who are going to pay for the recycling for everybody.
So it's exactly the opposite of the sales tax.
Right.
The sales tax we give,
Right.
bring in revenue from everybody that comes into our town and buys things, and we can generate revenue from everybody that spends their dollars here locally. Fantastic.
And
This
then
is
we have
exactly.
to look at the new sewer lagoon, and that's gonna raise our, well, not garbage rates, but the sewer rates are gonna go up. And you can bet our water rates will go up, so can we afford to provide that service anymore for the community? I guess we have to look at that. I agree, it's a great thing to have, but we're paying for it and opening it up, that anybody can know that's.
And there's multiple people from outside the city that indirectly or directly have thanked me for the service and knowing that they're,
Don't cost them,
they don't cost them anything. But they are thankful that it's here.
Well, I'm sure they would.
And I just, I don't know, and then we're moving into budgeting season.
Is it an option to charge a fee for anybody outside the city limits or whatever using the services?
You're gonna have to patrol it night and day because people drive in the middle of the night dumping.
We used to do a similar kind of thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to have a monitor at our city dump, where at the city,
Just the license plate.
yeah, where if you were a Crofton resident, you could dump stuff in a dump, but if you were not a citizen of Crofton, then you had to pay a small nominal fee. But then that required that we had somebody hired to sit at the city dump all day long when the gate was open, which ended up not being cost effective. But Yeah, I don't know the solution to that. I mean, if it's a free will offering that we put there, if you didn't come from the city of Crofton and you put stuff in here, please put money in a little container. I don't know, no, I'm not making light of the situation. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know how we would, do that. We have issues with our current dump just being used as a dump instead of a tree and leaf and, cement concrete dump, so I don't know, there's been times in the past where we've had to lock that gate. I do not want that to happen because it's a huge inconvenience for me when I mow my neighbor's lawn and hear grass clippings go out there, but I don't know, it's just, I guess relying upon the goodwill of the people in that situation, but this, I don't know.
I'll make a motion to discontinue that recycling.
I don't know what, and I'm sorry, what contract we have with the grant, when it runs out, or when we have with arts, is they just come take it tomorrow or whatever, but I can look in that if that's where, what direction we want to go. The motion's been made to discontinue.
There's no chance of going back to the once a week trash, once a week recycle pickup at the home?
We have sewage charge.
You want us to look into it? We can look into it.
We can look into it and have 2 dumpsters, 2 trash cans, one will have to be recycling, like I go to other towns and they have that. And having it free will, I mean, I've seen 13 county cars, I've seen South Dakota cars come in there, they just dump it in there and they take off, they don't think nothing of it. It's not fair to the citizens of Crofton, that we gotta pay for that.
But, okay, no, I mean, at one point in time, we had 2 different garbage cans, correct?
Yeah.
And then one week we picked up garbage, the next week we picked up recycling.
Right.
Yeah, and there was there an additional fee?
Well, then,
No.
but,
There was for the city.
but-
That's why we quit doing it, because it was really cost prohibitive, right? That was,
I think, yeah, did they not take that option away?
yeah, I don't think,
I don't think they would,
right.
but
But I think they would still do it if we pay them enough money.
well.
It was exorbitant, yeah.
What they did, what do they put in it? Cardboard, what else? Plastic, they do.
Did they take milk jugs, plastic milk jugs and cardboard? I don't think so.
But I can remember when we had 2 containers, and somebody told me about this, I didn't believe them, so I watched it. The same truck that came in and picked up our garbage was the same truck that picked up the recycling. So,
That was a different.
but we had to pay, yeah, to use the same truck, you can't, if you have a recycling truck, it's gotta be.
From there,
Yep.
I was seeing fire garbage hauler. I sold those products on the market, the cardboard, plastic, and you got aluminum and cardboard, that's the only thing that's worth any money, right? But it's just a feel good thing, that's all it is. And that's the truth, I know. What you give that stuff?
Why don't you ask Arts if they wanna continue the recycling deal there, they can support it themselves. Cause you know that's probably what they're doing, selling the aluminum, selling the cardboard. And that also.
Okay, so the motion would be still to discontinue and then just to tell them, if you wanna leave it there, you can leave it there, but you're on your own?
Ask them.
Right.
Because
Maybe we could just pay them off the grant, offer them what the grant's paying us.
That's a great idea.
yeah, if they wanna keep it, cap it at that grant amount.
Yeah.
Negotiation.
That's a good idea.
Let's try that.
3998.
So for lack of a second, we are going to, the motion made by Mr. Pites is going to go by the wayside. And I will take under advisement to contact our recycling garbage people and see if they'll work with the $39.98 as their annual fee that, as the grant provides. I don't know the sunset date or the end of the recycling date, but if there is a sunset or ending clause on that, then their provided service will be contingent on that.
I got a maintenance solution. We get it at the city dump with the camera and see what vehicles drive in there. And if we see somebody from South Dakota
see somebody from 13 counties, we take them and we confront them. I mean, everybody's just dumping in there right now.
Does it say on the city of Crofton?
Well, you would think it would be. If
I
the
don't
city
think
limits,
it-
you know, if we gave the city limits, you think people would do it, but everybody, farmers are bringing stuff in there, you know, at our cost.
So you want, go ahead and deal with the garbage people as instructed and see what they'll do. If they choose not to, then we'll discuss that at the next meeting and go on from there. Okay, thank you very much. All right, with that, we'll move on to items of old business, which would be Reed Miller with the lagoon update. Okay. Read over.
Mr. Miller is not here, but he did send a letter, and I have not proved this, so here we go. Dear council members, in order to provide the council with an update, this letter is presented to you. As you are probably all aware, the project is not moving currently due to lack of funding. We have been working with USDA RD since we were hired. Everything the agency has requested from us and the supplemental engineering report dated January 2023 has been submitted to them. The city has also provided information answering several requests from the USDA RD. There have been no offer or loans or grants from the USDA RD to date. Of course, we have checked with other agencies such as SRF, administered by NDEE. They do not have any funding available at this time and none anticipated in the next year. In March, Congressman Smith entertained requests for federal funds which might become available. We requested funds of $4,500,000 for your project. Currently, all the requests for these special funds are being reviewed by an appropriations committee and no word has been received today. The engineering of the project is proceeding and will be ready for bids when funding is available. Last week, we received the final soils. I got the letter today and they want to change the prices for August 1st. It is an increase and it looks like unless we do some fancy financial things, we're probably going to have to pass that on because they are increasing the pickups. So we'll look at that, but as I said, I'm working with them to try to get it postponed until we can get a meeting together for next time where we can get all the information for you. Other than that, it's been very busy. Chantal and I are working very hard. She's really getting very close to getting things ready so that we can start our budget. She actually closed out May on Friday, which is pretty good because we still have a few glitches. We're really having trouble with QuickBooks. It doesn't really work as a system for municipalities. I'd like to look into some that might be better, although switching over at this time might be a bigger headache. Good news is we had sent out the collection letters and we have over half of the people have paid in full, and we have the other half that are making regular payments and doing very well. Their payments are as agreed, what their monthly bill is, and then something above that to work on their arrears. So that's working. We only had one shut off, and that has been paid in full, and their water's back on. So very encouraging with that. So I really see that I think that trust is coming back in the office. We're being very careful to make sure the receipts get out for payments, for especially cash payments that come in, keeping a close eye on things, and as we said, trying to get information to the council as prices go up and things become immediately necessary to handle. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. I don't have all the answers, as I'm very aware of what this job entails. It's sometimes just crazy. I've sold cemetery plots, I've given gun permits, dog licenses. Oh, and if your dog needs licensing, I only have 2 for this year that have been paid. So if you've got a dog, they need to be licensed, so please come in and get that taken care of. So, but if you have questions, call me. I'd be happy to find the answer if I don't have them.
I don't think so. Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, moving on would be the maintenance, if Dustin has anything for us in particular.
Just thanks to everybody that helped with tree cleanup in the last 2 weeks.
Can you? All right. We did have a new crew member today, so I have not had the opportunity to read meters as of yet, but anyway, if you saw a new person in your backyard, it was Mrs. Morris, and she joined the crew this morning to get the meters read. If 3 people do it, they can do it in a nice, timely fashion, get it taken care of in an expedient process.
We got them all done except for the 3.
We're all done except for 3 meters, so we're in great shape. Okay, with that, moving on, if there's no questions for Dustin. All right, the last item is there a report from me, and I just have a reporter update on the J Grant. Alexandria Beck, I did that right, didn't I? I never remember. So Alexandria Beck is the writer, or not approved facilitator of the grant that we're talking about or have talked about through Jay. I talked with her in great length, and we need to, as a council, make a decision today, because I have to let her know tomorrow what our intentions are. If we want to, because there are major discrepancies in the grant. When I read, before I signed the grant, I was asked to sign some documents that were assurances and contingencies. And as I was reading through the assurances and contingencies, it came to light that I had never read the grant, and I've never seen the grant. So I requested to see that grant, and I did on the morning of June 27th, when the grant was due for signing. I believe that's the day I got to see, actually physically saw the grant. And upon reading it, I found that there was some misinformation in there that was representing the city in an effort to acquire the grant. So I contacted the Alexandra Beck and told her that at this point in time, we were not able to complete or sign the grant and sign off of it is in its written state. And so she gave us some options. She said if as a city council, you would like to rewrite the grant so it does represent the wishes of the city and the reasoning and logic behind the grant, that we would have tomorrow to call her and say that yes, we would like to do that, and then we could get an extension till the end of July. She didn't give me a specific day, but she said the end of July. She wants desperately to get the money to us, because it's allocated to us, and approved for us tentatively, but it has to be signed and approved in order for her to do that. There were issues, and so in that process, I don't know what I'm gonna do. The other thing that she did say, and it was, unfortunately, it was kind of her suggestion, is that at this point in time, in a situation, in the environment that we are in, that we just cut this thing loose, this grant, the $93,000, and said no harm, no foul, and move on for another day to write a grant again and try this process again with something that more closely represents our city's wishes, and then we would do that. So
Do you have a list of what the misrepresentations were? So that the people can know what specifically you're talking about?
It's in the grant.
What?
I have it right here in my hand.
Can I see it?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would like to see.
And Mr. Denny is here because there are information in the grant that pertains to our allegations to. So Mr. Denny's here representing the Santee Sioux Tribe, our neighboring Sioux Nation. He had his concern from the grant as well. So if you'd like to speak to that now, Alonzo, this would be a point to do that. Thank you.
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for giving me a little bit of time here.
This grant with your police officer that wrote here is a complete misrepresentation of who we are as people. It claims in this grant that we are the sole cause of methamphetamines and fentanyl in your community. It's in black and white. We do not have a fentanyl problem in our home. We do not have these issues in our hometown. How can one person throw one man or another nation under a bus to receive these federal funds? As I sit here today and I look at what was wrote, and I'll read it to you. I have the grant here. I'm a little frustrated here. It clearly states that Crofton and the surrounding areas has a real problem with human trafficking, sexual abuse, and these problems, as well as methamphetamines and fentanyl that stem from the neighboring reservations. I am the chairman of the Santee Sioux Nation. I represent my people. And we do not have that issue at home. That is falsifying documents to obtain federal funding. That is not right. I encourage each and every one of you to take a stand against this, as we do not stand here and degrade nobody else to obtain our federal funding for our police force. We do not do these things. We do not throw nobody else under the bus. Police force is needed. I agree. Equipment is needed. I also serve on the volunteer fire department at home. We apply for grants over and over and over. We are in a mutual aid compact with Crofton. There's many other ways and resources you can go about obtaining funding besides throwing another nation under the bus. We are a proud nation. We are a proud people. Yes, we all have our problems. Yes, we all have drugs that run through our communities, if that is the case. But do not, please, and I beg of you, do not throw our nation under the bus to obtain federal funding for things that you can get any way, shape, or form. There are ways to go about this. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Now, I've been in contact with our attorney, and this is slander. This is degrading to a people. It's not accepted. It will not be tolerated. I stand before all of you. I stand before this board here today. This was signed off by Mr. Jason Wolverine on the back there. Please read this. Read what is being submitted on your guys' behalf. Look at what is being done to your neighboring communities. We come through here every day. Somebody from Santee drives through here every day to go to Yankton, get our groceries, as I'm sure some of you may do as well. We do not come here to cause problems. We do not come here to create headaches. We are not coming here to create grief. But I will stand in opposition of this grant, as well as my attorney. And we will write a letter to the Nebraska Criminal Court in opposition of this grant. Although you may need law enforcement, you may need equipment, I understand that. We are a small community, just like you guys. We have 5 officers. I understand the need. I understand the urgency. I understand the one to protect your community. I understand all of that. But I beg each and every one of you, stand up, rewrite this. One sentence in this grant threw a whole nation under the bus. It labeled me a sex trafficker, a sexual abuser. It labeled my community as a community that provides drugs to other communities. We do not do that. We do have our issues at home, but we are not from people. We are a proud people. And I will stand behind you guys not getting this grant because of what was said. I will fight so you guys will not get this grant. There's other ways to go about it. With me, I brought our Vice Chairman, Mr. Cameron Reynolds.
who also has a few things he would like to say. I beg you guys, each and every one of you, is your child a sex trafficker? Would it hurt your feelings if I said something? And I say that to this council that sits here. I ask you guys to look at that. I ask you guys to consider what I'm saying. My father isn't a sex trafficker. He's a Bronze Star recipient, as many of those flags represent over there. I'm a proud man just as he was. We are a proud people. And I ask you guys to take a stand against this grant. Rewrite the grant. There's many ways to go about it. There's many different things you can do. I would love, just as this grant was published and sent to the state capitol or wherever you sent it, to send them a letter apologizing. I beg of an apology for our community. I challenge you to apologize. Yes, sir.
So you're saying that I don't even know what the Santee Sioux or any of this stuff, so I'm just listening to you explain to us, and what I'm hearing is you don't have any drug issues or any problems of this nature where you're at?
No, I'm not saying that. We have issues at home as well. But this grant solely blames any troubles this community has on my reservation. That's very clear in the back and white right here.
Could you read that spot?
I understood it just means
Because it was my
the communities
understanding
were
that
there.
it just noted some of the things going on in the communities around, including the reservation.
This is due to two reservations that border our city.
Yes, the reservation borders the city.
Yes.
You just
Your
stated
drug problem,
that you've got a
human
mental problem
trafficking,
too.
your drug problem, your human trafficking, your sexual abuse, all these things are due to the two reservations that border your city. Which is a misinterpretation because there's one reservation in northeast Nebraska.
But that grant also mentioned Yankton, it mentioned South Dakota. Where is that? Because I don't hear you mentioning that. And just for clarity, I apologize to you, sir, and to your co-chairs, that this information has been misrepresented to you. And this is why I wanted to come here, because first of all, the reason that the Crime Commission asked for things to be clarified by the mayor, myself, and whomever, I didn't write that. That information was gathered from grant writers in Lexipol, from information that they got from different sources, and the reason that they
What
say,
database did you go to prove that these drugs came from Santee, Nebraska?
Listen.
What database did you go to that says that we are responsible solely for human trafficking, sexual abuse?
They said, what Lexipol is
You
writing
wrote
the
it.
grant.
Are you Mr. Carter?
I actually did not write that. Those stats, those numbers that got put in, I put in a portion of that grant. It went to Lexipol wrote a lot of other information, all of the numbers and the stats they got from the census and everything else. They got information from different sources and from different areas, and
I'm sorry, sir, but this is submitted by Mr. John Carter. Are you him?
I signed off on the grant for the city of Crofton. What you're trying to characterize me as saying
of people to
that.
help you write this, but if your name is on it, you are condoning what is in that document.
That's why they asked us to look at the information, just like you heard the mayor say earlier today. When him and Larry Pike went to Knox County and they were overlooked for a $10,000 deal because they failed to do something, they were allowed to go in and correct the information so they can get their grant money. It's the same way here. When they sent that grant, they just didn't approve that grant. They said, hey, there's some contingencies here that we want you guys to look at and go in and correct this information that may not be correct or something that needs to be updated. You're absolutely right, sir. If you saw something and it was brought to your attention that you say one sentence.
Let me interrupt you for a second,
throws
sir.
all this off, then that could be brought to our attention in order to
I deal every
reconcile
day to
that.
write grants, sir. And the information that I submit in my grants, I'm solely responsible for it when I put my name on that paperwork.
Well, that's.
I am solely
okay,
responsible for it.
But.
No buts, if, ands, buts about it.
You guys
If I
came
submit a
here
grant,
to
if
find
my,
reasons
if my
not to
co-chair writes a
approve
grant,
this grant.
and I
If the
sign off
mayor
on that
doesn't
grant,
wanna do
sir,
that, and he
I
ran
am
to-
condoning
he ran to
everything he
you,
puts
so
in that
you
grant.
can help him to do that, that's fine.
There
That's
are
not
other
fair
ways
to
to
you.
go about things
He
here.
doesn't represent the
We can work
Santee
together as a partnership.
tribe. He
In
represents
order to
the
get
city
to
of Crofton.
Santee, you come down Highway 12.
Okay.
In order to get there, we have to come through Highway 12.
So the inconsistency here is the way it's phrased.
Yes.
This is a problem we have to deal with along with our neighbors. This is a problem we have to
Exactly,
deal
and
with.
I had asked that we rewrite this grant, that you
Yeah.
rewrite
So
the
it
grant.
seems like that's a pretty easy thing to fix to make it accurate.
Right.
I don't think the intention was to say the reservation's costed, but that is what it literally says, when it says due.
And then they,
How
all
can
the
the
others,
intention not
why
be
they
there when
leave
it's in
it
black and
out?
white?
Why did they leave all the
How
others
can the
around
intention
the
not be
communities
there?
out? They were named.
The intent is there. You submitted the grant. It states it in black and
The
white.
Crofton Police Department also aids the Knox Sheriff's Department with calls around Lewis and Clark Lake along Highway 12 and 121. So where's their report?
They're not on there,
Right, this is just John and I.
but they're not on
This
there.
is just the city of Crofton.
They're not on there because they don't get dispatched out to the lake.
Yes, we do get dispatched.
I tracked with the, I got.
Let me
the
say that not
information
the
from the
sheriff,
sheriff on my
Let's
phone.
let,
We
should we
need that
let,
contractor.
Also, it's
should
not
we let,
sheriff's
our
department.
I'm sorry.
We would need their
I'm sorry.
records.
We're
I'm
gonna
sorry,
let
Leslie.
our
I
other
didn't mean to
guys
interrupt.
speak.
So they're trying to say this means
Because
there weren't any drugs.
No, because he didn't get a dispatch, because we don't have ready to be dispatched, so he's calling on the phone, that's not documented.
That I rewrite this grant and a public apology be given to our community. That is what I'm requesting. Our lawyer is looking to seek slander and defamation of the nation. That is not correct.
Okay, we're not here
Can
to.
we keep out the conversations
Please.
down
Yeah.
while our guest speaks, please?
We're not here to cause problems or division or anything like that. We just want to have good, positive relationships with our neighbors. And for the most part, we do. Like Chairman Denny was saying, we drive through here every day. I think there's a lot of residents of this community that work in Santee, at our health center, in our school systems. We just want to get along with everyone, and it's unfortunate that this happened. Last year I was here at the school, speaking with the school board over some other issues, and I made the same pitch to them now, that if there's problems with our communities, or if you think there's one, we should work together to resolve those. And that's all we're kind of here trying to do right now. If there's an issue that we think we have or you have, let's work together and figure those out. And I think Chairman Denny pretty much said everything else that needed to be said, and I'll leave it at that. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, what would you like me to do or us to do?
I make a motion to rewrite the grant.
Oh, yeah, okay, with the little conversation here, I'll do everything humanly possible and work with this Alexandria. She personally assured me that unless I'm ethically okay with this going forward as representing the city, if that's okay with you, I will show it to you. I have to be totally transparent on the additions and corrections I'm gonna make. I have our economic development director has additions and corrections that she'd like to add, and grammatically, to be honest with you, I can talk with you, I represent myself fairly well, but for me to write things down is atrocious. But anyway, so you can tell from my emails, I'll do everything humanly possible. We have a hard deadline in July, and I'll do everything humanly possible to make sure, if I stumble and I can't get it, I'm gonna ask for additional resources to help us, and I will give you a number instead of blindsiding you with it. Okay? So with that being said, we have a motion and a second to amend it, rewrite the grant.
Amend the grant.
Or amend the grant. And I will call Alexander in the morning and tell her that are our wishes,
Yeah.
that we can amend the grant and we'll be done by the end of July. With that being said, Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Wagoner? Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
We have a motion to adjourn establishing the new meeting on August 14th, at 6:30. Motion's been made and
I'll second.
seconded by Miller. Wagoner? Miller?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Pikes?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.